Good morning all. Welcome to In the Hot Seat. I am your host, Rudy Vincent. My guest today is the renowned information scientist, Denise Russo. On this episode, we will be discussing her newest book, The Impact of Metadata in Civil Cases. Yes, all of you neurotic people, the surveillance society clock truly is ticking. With mass surveillance the norm, it seems that Big Brother really is watching. Some people are becoming more sophisticated and avoiding what may serve as metadata red flags, while others remain blissfully unaware. Today's show will take an in-depth look at the potential expanded use of metadata in civil litigation, its documented use in federal and international cases, and its implications for the average United States citizen. Welcome to the show, Denise Russo. Let's begin our discussion by starting with the basics. Tell me, Denise, what are civil cases?
Good morning, Rudy, and thank you for having me on the show. A civil case involves one or more people or an organization, such as a pharmaceutical company, which may claim that the other person or entity failed to fulfill legal obligations, therefore requiring the action of either the state or federal court, which is according to the American Bar Association. These parties, or litigants, refer to both the plaintiffs and the defendants. Often compensation for harm done in some form, for example, money for lost wages, may be requested.
I see. How are civil cases different from criminal cases?
As I mentioned, in civil cases, there are two disagreeing parties. And if found liable, the defendant has to compensate the plaintiff. Whereas in criminal cases, if found guilty, the accused can be incarcerated and fined. Outside of the United States, civil and criminal cases may be combined. However, in the United States, these types of cases are distinct and tried separately. Types of civil cases that we see may involve personal injury claims, reneging on a contract, auto collisions, divorce, and even child custody.
Let's move on to metadata. Sounds impressive. Tell me about metadata and what kinds of information metadata holds.
Those of us in the information field who are entwined with metadata define it as data about data. There is visible metadata such as pictures, texts, and MP3 files, and there is embedded metadata, the kind which is unseen yet trackable and potentially verifiable. Simply sharing an office memo with a coworker unleashes the sharing of other perhaps unknown metadata elements, including the author of the documents, the revisions made to the document, hidden text, deleted comments, and so on. The information that metadata contains has become the new frontier, much like the Wild West, in terms of its usage in civil cases. The weight of metadata mining for use in civil cases is currently unstandardized. Further, its use is specific to each case tried, leaving much room for interpretation on the part of the plaintiffs, defendants, their attorneys, and the courts.
I am curious. How can different types of metadata be mined and utilized? Let's start with cell phones. Denise, so are you telling me that my cell phone is a virtual metadata gold mine?
Yes, indeed, Rudy. Your cell phone is a font of information ripe for data mining. As we all know, cell phones have replaced teddy bears in the form of digital comfort and assurance. With this level of intimacy, however, comes pitfalls. As some fall asleep with their blue screens glowing, the metadata collection continues into the night. What did they look at right before they fell asleep? In an apparent rollover, did the phone take a sleepy selfie and post it to Snapchat? Whatever the case, every breath of someone's life can be recorded in the metadata bowels to be mined for future use.
Let's move on to one's educational history. What kind of data may be accessible for use in a civil case?
Well, those of us in academia are aware of the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act of 2007, commonly known as FERPA. However, professors and university staff alike may not be cognizant of the new amendments that took place in 2008. For example, under the amended act, an academic institution may release educational records of an individual without prior consent, provided there is a health or safety emergency. In addition, per FERPA, other sensitive data, such as date of birth, telephone number, dates of attendance, student IDs, and so on, may be given to third parties, whether it be specified administrators or organizations doing studies on the school, without consent.
Look, I may be a bit of a dinosaur in regards to social tagging, but I understand that I do it every day on Facebook. What's the big deal of tagging in regards to civil cases? Is someone going to sue me because I am too happy?
Well, my answer to your second question is yes and no. Social tagging is inherently, social, which means it has a visibility that perhaps other types of metadata do not. As I mentioned, third parties feast on social tagging, which is embedded with a wide array of free text labels or tags and cookies. During the court proceedings of the United States versus Jones in 2012, the Associate Justice of the Supreme Court stated that the Fourth Amendment was ill-suited to the digital age, in which people reveal a great deal of information about themselves to third parties in the course of carrying out mundane tasks. Therein lies the rub. While ill-suited, the Fourth Amendment still stands. In the realm of social media, there has been a civil case that has served as the precedent for the use of social metadata platforms as evidence for personal injury cases. In Suffolk County, New York, in 2010, the case of Romano versus Steele case, although the plaintiff balked at the use of her social media to bolster the defendant's case, the judge ruled in the defendant's favor. As the plaintiff was requesting damages due to injuries purportedly due to falling off a defective chair during work hours, the judge stated that to permit a party claiming very substantial damages for loss of enjoyment of life to hide behind self-set privacy controls on a website, the primary purpose of which is to enable people to share information about how they lead their social lives, risks depriving the opposite party of access to material that may be relevant to ensuring a fair trial. These types of metadata-infused personal injury cases can serve as platforms for other civil cases.
Denise, in our last few minutes, tell our listeners how and why metadata will impact current and future civil cases in America.
Per Hansen and Pratt, metadata's most prominent parts in a case may be to question the veracity of the opponent's proof and hypothesis of the case. Lawyers and their clients ought to be aware that any record made digitally implies that it, too, can have trace elements of possibly pertinent permissible evidence that will test the fidelity of the party's assertions and evidentiary documentation. Currently, there is no particular strategy for verifying each piece of digital data. The authentication of the data will depend on the facts of the case. They say actions speak louder than words, but going forward, the combination of actions, words, pictures, videos, and all embedded metadata will speak the loudest.
Thank you, Denise Russo, for always providing us with a lot to think about. Denise Russo's book, The Impact of Metadata in Civil Cases, is on sale at Amazon.com.